So now we want to understand how to deal with duplicated values, right? So we make use of the duplicated function. So this function, it finds duplicate values, right? Say for example, this function is a function that asks questions like, hey, have I seen this before? Right? And we're going to just create a simple duplicated data frame so that we can just see a standard use of duplicated function. But this function simply just find and remove duplicated record. All right. So let us look into this simple duplicated data frame. So I've created this simple data frame, right, which contains um, some duplicated observations. And let's say dup data, and let's run this, and let us um, let us see duplicated in action, right? So what we're going to do here is that if you say duplicated, right, and then duplicated, then you pass this data frame, right? So let's see what this returns. So you can observe that this here returns a vector of logics, right? And in order to 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 find a new data frame that has removed the duplicated records, what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate this. So if we use exclamation mark, right, and say duplicated, and say duplicated, okay, and then we pass this data frame, right? And if we run this, you observe that this has returned an opposite of this, right? So that is how we can use an exclamation mark, right? Exclamation mark will find the opposite, right, of what this returns, right? This returns a vector of logics, false, false, true, false, false. And then if we put in the exclamation mark, is that we will find this one, right? So this one returns a vector of logics of where if it's duplicated, it's going to return true, right? So in order to remove duplicate, we have to find the subset, right? We can do so by finding the subset and pass this, right? So how can you do that? Is you say do data, right? So now I want you to find this, return this, say copy, and then return this. And if we run this, we observed that we have removed duplicated record, right? If you don't put this and you run this, you observe it returns the duplicated record, right? In order to find the opposite of that, we put the sign and we run this. So this is how we can remove duplicated records, right? So let us look into an example. Say we are using a quality data set and say we are looking for, say for example, for duplicated months to see if do we have duplicated months in our data. Okay, so we can do so by saying is month duplicated, right? So we can create this variable and say, right, and say do duplicated, right, and say a quality, right, and say month, right, and say let's see for the first is month, right? And let us just find let's see the first 10 from this return vector of logics. So you can observe here that we simple have duplicated month values, right? So what we want to do is we're gonna say let us remove those and say equality and say and pass, say question mark. Remember we're finding the opposite of this, right? And then you turn all the months, and if you run this is the output where it has um, removed the duplicated values, right? So from this you can observe that we have actually used the subsets of the data, right? It will only leave the first instance of a value during the time when it occurs. Okay, so this is how you can use duplicated to remove duplicated values.